and welcome to my first ever homebrew video. So today's a brew day and I'm going to be brewing a mild. So mild, it's a low alcohol beer. I'm looking for somewhere around 3 to 3.5%. I'll be happy if it goes a little higher. I'm going to be using Marisota pale malts, Fuggles hops, Y yeast London 2 yeast. Yeah, fairly straightforward. Infusion mash, no great tricks. It's about 1 o'clock now. I hope to be done by about 5. Let's get brewing. Right, boiler. So this is a 70 or 75 litre kettle, I think. I'm going to be brewing 50 litres today, which is quite a lot, but it fits comfortably in this. Just going to be using tap water, but I've devised a way which has been heating from the tank, and I've devised a way to get it from the tap into the boiler with a minimum of oxygen ingress. It basically involves running the hose pipe through the window of the downstairs toilet. Just very briefly, to introduce our camera person and a brewing assistant for today. Right, hose, thank you. Oh yes, I took the hinges off that. So, the next stage, I haven't looked in my grain store for a while, but we'll go there now. So I don't know if the base malts I'm going to be using are whole or crushed. If they're whole, then we're going to have to do some hard work, because I don't have a mechanised malt mill.
Thoughtful moments.
Yeah, Right, so, weighing the malts. I've got some scales, especially for the job. They go up to 15 kilos, I think, which is ideal. Right, so 7.5 kilos. So I'm going to need more than that, but that's a good start. Right, so here's my malt mill. Right, and cobwebs. It's been a few months since I've brewed any beer, so anyway. So, the dark malts. Mild ale is a very strange style because it can take quite a lot of very dark malts without tasting too acrid, despite having quite low alcohol. And I don't know why that is. But anyway, so today we're going to be using, let's see, dark crystal. Dark crystal. So this imparts a very sort of grainy flavour, and dark crystal, it's a malt that you see in mild recipes all the time, but not really in anything else. I've got some low colour chocolate malts. I'm going to put in 150 of that as well, I think. Oh, I've got some ordinary chocolate malts, so I'm going to throw that in as well. And I'm going to put some black in as well. Let's say 50 of black. No, 70 of black. Actually 50, that's going to be enough. Right, I'm going to grind all these, and by the time I've done that, the mash water should be heated. Okay, so I'm planning to mash at about 68 degrees, and I find that if I have mash water of about 78, that gets me where I need to be. Right, water additions. Right. We're on chalk here. We've got quite heavy, quite hard water. That's not a problem for this style, but I do need to lower the pH for the mash. I'm going to do that with lactic acid. Tough out the syringe. And I'm also concerned about the chlorine in the water, so I'm going to add some sodium metabisulfate. It's going to be literally that much. In the interests of keeping the oxygen level low, I'm going to underlet the water into the mash tun using this. So once this is mashed in, I've got two major concerns. The most important is the temperature. I'm aiming for 68. If it's a bit less, that is alright. And the other is the pH. So I'd hope I'll have a pH of about 5.3. But we'll see in a moment. And what do we have? That's about 5.4. That will do nicely. Well, 66 and a half. That'll do me, that's fine. So it might be a bit drier than I had intended, but I'm happy with that. Well, hello and welcome back. So it's the mash is at 2 hours now, and what I'm now going to do is and I've heated this water to about 80 degrees. This is the strike water. I'm going to put in some sodium metabisulfate. Good. Pump. So I use this pump for all sorts of things, but today I'm only going to be using it to recirculate the wort. So usually recirculating wort involves spraying it back on top of the grain beds, but again I think that it's worth avoiding that because of the oxygen that it introduces into the wort. So I'm doing this. Good. I'm going to sparge quite fast because there isn't actually that much, the grain bill is quite low, there isn't that much grain in there, relatively speaking, and there is quite a lot of water to go through, so, but also, I don't want the temperature to drop too much, because I then have to get it back up to the boil, and that takes ages, so yeah, I'm going to let it go as far as it can go. Good colour there, see? It's going to be a nice colour through everything, not a black one, I don't think. I'm going to insulate the kettle as best I can with these. It should speed up the... should mean it gets the boil quicker. I have 100 grams of Fuggles, 5.3% alpha acid. So this bit mild isn't a particularly, it isn't about hop aroma, but we do want hop bitterness. However, this whole bag I think would be too much bitterness, so I've taken out 25 grams, which I'm going to add late at about 15 minutes to from the end of the boil. that's just a token gesture. I can't see it making a great deal of difference, but it's just something to do with it, so that 75 grams at the start. Anyway, still not quite at the boil yet, but that's alright. Okay, so here we are. It's not a crazy boil, but it's good enough for me. So, what I'm going to do is give it another stir. I'm going to unplug one of the elements. Like so. We'll half cover it like this. My next job is in 3/4 of an hour from now. See you then. Well, it's been boiling for 3/4 of an hour, 15 minutes left to go. I'm going to add the late hops. It's 25 grams of the Fuggles. I'm also going to add some Irish moss. And I'm also going to put in all the things that I'm going to need for when I chill the wort. So that's the wort chiller, thermometer, and a spoon. Here's my wort chiller. It's steel, and is it 15 metres? It's a big one. Right, and in the meantime, I'm going to sanitise my fermenters with Star San. Okay, so dividing the worts evenly between the two fermenters. I've put the yeast in the bottom, divided that evenly too. Mix them back and forth a bit because I think the wort is cooler at the bottom than at the top. So I want to get an even temperature, or get them both as low. Right, looks like we're about there. So let's have a look at the hydrometer. I'm saying it's about 1043, I think. Yeah, we'll say 1043. The beer itself is in here. My temperature controlled fermentation chamber, namely a chest freezer controlled by an Inkbird. So that's I'm gonna set it at 18 degrees. I think that would be pretty much ideal fermentation temperature. The beer will be warmer than that. The wort will be warmer than that at the moment, but hopefully not too much. $21. Well, that isn't bad at all. Right, all there is left to do now is clear up. Right, well, see you in a few days. Well, hello and welcome back. This is day 3 of the ferment. So the brew day was the day, 3 days ago, and I'm now going to rouse the wort. So the issue is that the yeast is very good at settling in the bottom of the fermenter, but it's too good, and it means that the beer doesn't fully ferment before the yeast has settled out. So what I have to do is get a spoon and disturb all the sediment in the bottom of each of the fermenters, so it goes back into circulation and finishes the fermentation of the beer. I'm trying not to get too many bubbles in the beer. I'm just trying to make sure that anything that's on top is going back into the liquid. Then I'm going to go to the bottom of the... and anything that's sitting on the bottom I'm going to rouse up as well. Excellent. So, I'm going to put the lids back on, close it up, and come back in about 3 or 4 days. See you then. Okay, it's time to keg the beer. So, the beer has been in the fermenter for 10 days now, and the hydrometer is reading 1012, which means it's fermented out and it's ready to go. Okay, kegging. So, I've got about just over 50 litres in these 2 fermenters, which I'm going to divide into these 3 20-litre fermenters. I'm going to carbonate. I'm going to force carbonate. I'm going to raise the pressure in the first one to about 50 bar, and then I'm going to leave it for maybe 4 or 5 hours, and then I'm going to be drinking it this evening. See you then. Well, hello and welcome back. Well, here it is. So, I said that I was going to report back the day that I kegged this beer. As it turned out, it wasn't very exciting then, and I've left it a week, and now I think it's reached perfection. Initially, there was quite high diacetyl levels. I think I was messing around with the fermentation temperature a bit towards the end, and the yeast didn't like that very much. But yeah, a week later it settled down. The diacetyl is still there, but it complements the malts very nicely. So yes, it's a very malt-forward beer. There's hop bitterness, but no hop flavour to speak of. I'm drinking it at about 15 degrees. I've experimented a bit with refrigerating it down to 11 or 12, but it really doesn't need it, and the malt profile is much more prominent at this temperature. So, just a quick reminder, this was made with mild ale malt predominantly, but then with some dark crystal, light coloured chocolates, ordinary chocolates and black malt, 75 grams of fuggles at the boil, and 15 minutes before the end. It's come out at 4.1%, which is a little more than I was expecting, but that's fine. No, that suits it very well. So, dark mild. So, remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time on Gavin's Beer and Brewing. Cheers!